Hello, everyone. I am the host of Taboo Topic for this election night special edition. We're only going to be on for a little bit, and I say we because guess what? Ryan is back. Ryan, nice to see you. Fancy seeing you here.
Good to be here. How are you doing, Ken?
It was a great 15-minute break, whatever that was.
Yeah, it wasn't much, but hey, it was all right. It was all good.
It was good. Anyways, let's just get down to business because tonight's election night, and that's what you guys are here for. You want to hear some live reaction to some of the stuff that's coming out of election night. So by all means, folks, Ryan, I know you have some sources you want to go ahead and show us. For example, we have a situation in Georgia. We have 10% of the vote in, correct?
11%. Yep, so far. For Georgia, it's looking like Warnock, the Democrat, is up 61% to 37. Walker is trailing significantly at 10%. Now, that is the interesting part to me on that is that Warnock is considered more of a radical, and that's not just by MAGA Republicans. Like that is like generally like he's pretty tied to Ibram X. Kendi and just groups that a lot of people like. He's not the moderate that a lot of people would pitch him to be. So I don't know. I'm trying to remember the exact details. He took in 2020, they had like a special election, right? And so he did not serve a full term, but he is the incumbent. And that does count. Oh, Kevin said he voted in Georgia today. That's right. Kevin has moved to Georgia. What's up, Kevin?
Well, thank you, George. Thank you, Kevin, for voting. Don't be a riot.
Yeah, I know. Bad me. But yeah, so we'll see how that plays out. So that's Georgia. I actually don't know who's favored to win, but right now it's looking like he is up. So,
now, what are your personal sentiments as far as how do you think tonight's going to go? Do you think we're going to see like maybe a red trinklet, a red wave, red tsunami, or as AK has been saying now, a red flood? That's a good one.
I don't think there's going to be a red flood. Honestly, I don't even know if there's going to be a red wave.
Really?
No. I don't know. I feel like most of these races are tight. I think that you're going to see a flip because I think a lot of people are disgruntled. A lot of people tend to vote based off of what is most relevant, might be one word, but either relevant or like what is like most immediate and pressing to them. And that tends to be their economic issues. You also tend to have people vote against the president. A lot of the midterm elections, mid cycles, off seasons, whatever you want to call it, they tend to be a referendum on how displeased people are with the president's party, instead of being more focused on like the good merits of the side that they're voting for. Tends to be the case, right? So you had George W. Bush. I believe he lost control of the House and the Senate
in 2006.
Right, but I believe he maintained it in his first because of 9/11, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, correct.
Which that was unique. Obama
go ahead.
Usually, yeah, it's usually a flip-flop, right? So Obama went in with both houses, Trump went in with both houses, Biden went in with both houses. Obama lost I believe he lost both the House and the Senate. And then Trump lost the
House,
but he kept the Senate. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with Biden. Here's the disadvantage for the Republicans that they have right now. They have more seats up for grabs. Now, a lot of those are obviously going to be in areas that are probably going to stay the same. You probably won't see an upset. You could, but there are, let me make sure that I get the exact numbers here. Bear with me for 1 second. You have 37 receipts retained by the Democrats and 32 retained by Republicans. Those are just, you only have so much of Congress up for re-election every year. So they have an advantage by 5 to begin with. Now it was a 50-50 split before. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. So Pennsylvania.
You mind pulling that up, by the way?
What's that?
You mind pulling it up on the screen, by the way, so the audience can see?
Yeah, while I pull that up, why don't you take over for just a second while I figure this out here?
Well, I can. I'll answer my own question as far as whether or not I think we're going to see a red flood, red tsunami, red wave, or drinklet. Based on my current sentiments about election integrity, I have a little bit more pessimistic point of view, I guess. Oh, can the audience see that?
I don't know how vertical, so I don't know how good it is. But on the left, you have Pennsylvania, Georgia. Governor for Arizona. This is just being pulled from Politico, so it's pulling.
Yeah.
U.S. Senator, New Hampshire, 5% in. Most of them aren't even tracking yet. You're not going to see a lot of these, and again, it's projected, right? So polls are closed in 9 states now. It looks like.
Thank you, Kevin, for letting us know. He says sort of.
Well, yeah, and what tends to happen, we mentioned this kind of in our last segment, you can't be added to the queue or the line, but you can vote. Like, as long as you made it by cutoff time, you will still vote, which is why that is just a projected time that they'll be done. And that assumes that there are no complications, there are no challenges, and that you've got people. It really just depends on how long the line is once it gets caught off. So
now to the audience members, if you want to answer my question as far as like, what think is going to happen tonight? Do you think we're going to see a red trinklet, droplet, red wave, tsunami, a flood, or we're going to see a blue wave? I don't know. Let us know what you think. That said, I am leaning more towards red wave, but I wouldn't be surprised if we saw like a red droplet. Mainly because of the election integrity issues that we talked about in the last episode. And I mean, we're already hearing stories coming out of Arizona, Ryan, about I can't pronounce the name of the county, but I think it's like, can you pronounce the county?
I only saw that it was flagged. I didn't see what the county was, so no, I cannot.
Thanks, Ryan. Can always count on you.
All right. I know. What can I say?
Well, there's a Marsupial County in Arizona. It's like one of the bigger counties, if not the biggest county in Arizona. And there's a 90% failure rate already to count the ballots. And so, I mean, you just talked about a moment ago off air where actually before the episode Blueprint ended. Yes. Maricopa, the one.
There you go.
Yeah. Thank you, Kevin. Appreciate you. I'll show it for the audience because I totally butchered that.
Butchering it.
Yep. But there's already like reports coming from that county where there's a 90% failure rate.
Yeah.
As far as the machines not being able to count the ballots. And so you have campaigns like Kari Lake saying like, don't get out of line, stay in line,
right.
Make sure that your vote is actually counted.
Don't leave. Make sure you stay in line. Because if you leave, then there's nothing they can do. If you stay in line, and that is the part that becomes frustrating about elections, right? Is that you've got, you have to take time out of your day, out of your life to stay for that. So that can be incredibly frustrating. So,
yeah. And so because of like stories like coming out of Arizona, I have more of a pessimistic. I still say red wave at least. I would love to see a red tsunami.
If Kevin's still on here, I'm not sure because he was on Facebook Live. I'm not sure if he just scrolled past, but I'm curious since he's on the ground in Georgia, if he happens to know or just have like an idea of which way that state is leaning, just based off of signs and support. Oh, that's nice. Kevin said his school schedule fall break for today over that. That's actually really good because then the students can get off and they can go vote. But yeah, Kevin, let me know.
And to my
leaning.
and to my audience, I know one of them is from Georgia. If you want to let me know where you think the direction is leading towards, where the winds are shifting, you let us know as well. Now here in Florida,
the governor seats.
True. Now here in Florida, because we also got Florida over here, I can tell you that the winds are shifting even darker shade of red. I would assume, to be honest.
You think so?
I think so. I mean, in Miami. All right. The registered voters in Miami for the first time in, I think, ever, there's been more Republican registered voters have outpaced the Democrats. Like they have a lead. Yeah, in Miami, and that's a big city in Florida. And it goes to show you, though, how much the Hispanic population has shifted demographically when it comes to their preference. And it's happening in Texas as well. That's why you had Maya Flores from the border in Texas, who in that county for many, many years had voted Democrat. But because of the policies of immigration from Joe Biden, they flipped red. And now that's a red county. And so we're seeing the Hispanics shift red. And that's disappointing, Kevin. Oh, that's really sad.
Kevin's prediction.
Yeah, Kevin's prediction.
That would not surprise me. One is the incumbent, and two, just kind of the way that Georgia's been shifting. I know they've had a lot of displeasure with their Senate. So that is not surprising to me, at least. But
now, do you think Keb is going to remain in office? And that's the next question. Or we're going to see a Stacey Abrams, the radical, out of.
I don't think she is popular enough to overcome an incumbent, but I could be wrong. But I think, I don't know, at least from what I've seen, which granted, I'm not really involved in Georgia, so it's been somewhat limited. So I really just get whatever the legacy media flashes for her race. I haven't seen strong stances from her that resonate with the base, but I could be wrong. I don't know. I'm also not Georgian, so I'm not entirely positive. But I think that anytime you're going up against the incumbent, regardless of how strong your policies are and how popular they are, you have your work cut out with you. So I think it just depends. And I think that also, given her stances on things, I think she tends to off-put at least part of the base. So obviously that basis that she off-puts is going to be more Republican in nature. So maybe it doesn't matter. I don't know. And that's really what's going to decide that, right? Is do you capture the moderate, middle of the road votes? If you don't, then regardless of the state that you're not going to do well. What do you think about Pennsylvania? You got Fetterman versus Oz, or Fetterwoman, as he said. You see about that?
Yeah, I saw that.
I think Oz is really unpopular, being a person who is kind of Trump-esque, not necessarily in policy, but as being a television personality, right? Like in that vein. But I think that Fetterman has not, like, they just finally got like one debate in, like right before voting, and I think that might have,
he bombed it.
From the clips that I had seen, it didn't look like he was quite as strong as he had wanted to be going up to it. So
I would say, again, based on what I've seen from the voter election allegations, as far as the integrity of it, and I'm not sure like what Pennsylvania has done to address it since then. I would not be surprised if Fetterman did win. And I know it sounds more pessimistic, and that's why I said originally, like, I would not be surprised if we saw like a red trip droplets tonight instead of like a red wave. But if the Democrats remain in control of Congress, period, I think I would have either lost, maybe both, trust the American public as far as their ability to vote with common sense, or
okay.
I'm just saying.
Okay. Or what?
Or there were some irregularities that took place, or like I said, maybe a little bit of both. So if we don't see at least one of the chambers of Congress flip tonight, I would expect the House is probably like the best chance the Republicans have to flip. And I think even Politico has them projected to flip the House anyway.
Yeah.
So
by how, I think it's more a question of by how much will they flip the House. Senate is going to be close, right? Because it was a 50-50 split going into this
question of,
and the Democrats. Oh, I'm breaking up now, I think.
The idea is by how much the Republicans are going to win by, correct?
Yeah, I think I cut out there, but yes, I cut back in when you were finishing my thoughts. So yes, that's what I was saying. By how much, I think, is the question. Yeah, exactly. And then the Senate, yes, I think that Democrats hold an advantage because they had a lot of momentum coming off of 2020 into the 2022 election, and they have more seats that they've retained, which means Republicans are going to scramble a little bit even to maintain their trailing ground that they had. So it'll be interesting to see. A lot of the Democrat messaging that I've been seeing has been trying to drum up more of Trump. And the messaging has seemed to be that, if we don't maintain Congress and then Trump makes a rerun for the presidential election in 2024, we're going to regress, right? And we saw a lot of Obama out on the campaign trails trying to drum up the support from the voters for the Democrat base. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. And again, everything that we say here, complete conjecture. I have no idea and I have no confidence. And that's that is what is interesting about this, is that most of these races are hotly contested. You're also seeing, even if the Democrats pull it out, they're sweating in a lot of areas that you would not have thought that they'd be sweating in with how close the races are now. So it's
New York is being one of those races where it's a lot closer than the Democrats were anticipating.
Right.
They're starting to sweat. I don't want to say they're sweating bullets, but they're definitely paying attention now than they probably would have been maybe a year ago.
Yeah.
But I will say, in a realistic scenario anyway, like if we didn't have all these voter irregularities, let's say we have voter integrity, like all 50 states, no issues whatsoever, I would say
Kevin says I have that Ryan has confidence.
Yes, I would say the American people are going to vote, at least the legal votes that will be casted today and tonight until the polls close. I think they're the legal votes anyway. I think the majority are going to vote red, and I think the Republicans have a decent shot at flipping both houses.
Ken's teeing up for Congress. A complaint session later if he doesn't get his Republicans in there. They were illegal votes. Come on, Ken.
I'm just being straight with my thoughts.
That's literally the non-falsifiable premise I was complaining about earlier, Ken, that you can't say, you can't frame it that way. That if I lose,
listen, this is my show. I'm going to be blunt with. This is my show at the end of the day, and I'm going to be blunt with my thoughts and everything like that. This is taboo topic, Ryan.
A non-falsifiable premise. If I lose, something is wrong. That's you're. I heard Joe Biden say that last week. I disagree with him then, so I'm going to have to disagree with you now.
You have to have your blinders on if you think people actually want this kind of BS with the Democrats have pulled the last 2 years. No security at the border. Inflation to where you could barely afford to pay your bills anymore. Diesel. We're about to run out of diesel like in less than a month. And
I did hear that. Yeah.
And
at least it's predicted. We'll see though.
And if that actually ends up happening, guess what? If you thought inflation was bad now, it's going to get worse next year. It's going to get worse after this month.
What do you think? I haven't actually checked into too much. I actually didn't even realize Gretchen Whitmer was up for re-election, governor of Michigan. What do you think on that race, Ken?
I don't know enough about Michigan politics, to be honest, to give you a straight answer. Would I be surprised if she maintained power? No. Again, Michigan's one of those states that had a lot of issues in the 2020 election, and I'm not sure like what they did to address it. And if they did anything, like how much that would actually affect the final results, but
well, Michigan has a lot of. Michigan has the automotive industry and a lot of blue collar workers. I'm interested to see how they will be voting. Michigan is. I'm trying to remember when it went. What did it go in? I know it went for Biden in 2020. Did it go for Trump in 2016?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's one of the states that tends to flip flop at least a little bit. So it has been blue, both in the way that it voted for Joe Biden and also Gretchen Whitmer, the incumbent, is a Democrat. But it's one of those states that tends to flip flop at surprising times.
Well, I will say this, too. I think this will be on the mind of voters is social issues, especially when it comes to the education system, the public school anyway. A lot of people are not liking the direction the public school system is going, especially when it comes to critical race theory and gender ideology and the LGBTQ, sexual orientation push and trying to sexualize children and everything like that. And so there's going to be, I think, a lot of parents, that's also going to be an issue for them at the ballot box. And I think I think Democrats are going to underestimate that. And they did it last year with Virginia. Remember the race in Virginia with the governor? They highly underestimated like how important
they did. And you had that who was the guy who was a truck driver who spent like $100 on his campaign?
It was in New Jersey. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
he barely spent any money, and
yeah.
he beat like a career-long politician in that state.
Yeah. Here's my general thoughts on elections that I believe are nonpartisan. Number one, incumbents losing, generally a good thing, right? Get some fresh blood in there, some people who are not complacent. Not to say that I like wild swinging back and forth of elections, but I do think that the incumbents retaining power becomes problematic. Get them out. The second thing that I'd say here is that when Congress is split so that they can't do anything, I personally believe that's a good thing, because the less legislation they pass that is shipping off more taxes or just passing the BS that they tend to pass when they're spread out like that. Personally, I like that. Not everybody does. Some people are more progressive than myself who like to see a lot of change. I think that it's good when they're split. So especially if it's whether it's one house, the other house, like we had under Trump, right? It was fairly limited and slow moving, and it requires more coalition building. That's one of the main reasons I like that, is because it requires that you network with the other side and get them more, and you just don't steamroll people. I don't like when either side gets to steamroll the other. So maybe that last one's not nonpartisan, but those are kind of my my general thoughts on elections. What do you think about those?
I would say it depends on who's in power for me. I'll be honest. Like, I'm not going to pretend.
Ken is like Marcelo, just on the other side, blatantly partisan and enjoys when his people get to write the rules.
I mean,
I'm procedural. I'm a procedural stickler.
I mean, until the Republicans show me otherwise, anyway. And granted, I do believe that there is such thing as a uniparty, where the Republican and Democrat, there's pretty much the same token, just other side of the coin. But
20% in for Georgia. Walker is catching up, 42.6 to 55.8. So different position than it was. Sorry, I just got that notification. Just want to interject. Go ahead.
No, you're good. No, you're good. So here's my thing. I think I take more issue with the primaries than the actual general election, because at least for the party anyway, if you have an association with the party and there's a certain candidate that you think would better represent that party, then you should go out and vote. And then if my guy from the primary actually won, then it's one of those things where it's like, I don't care if the Republicans retain power in both chambers of Congress or the governorship or presidency, because at that point, the person I voted for, I have confidence they're going to actually live up to what they said they're going to do when they're in office. So, granted, now if let's say the majority of the Republicans, they're a bunch of rhinos, right? And rhinos, for those who don't know what that means, a rhino is more or less a Republican by name, but they policy-wise, when it comes to voting and a lot of times rhetoric, and you saw this with Liz Cheney, they spew Democratic talking points and they vote along Democrat lines, and so hence the name Rhino.
So let me ask you this, Ken. If someone negotiates, let's say a Republican, and and this is where it comes down to like personal definitions, right? You've got it spot on, Republican in name only. But if a Republican coalition builds with the Democrat, would you label that person as a rhino, or does it depend on the policy that they pass?
It depends on the policy they pass.
Okay, because I do know some people who think that like any coalition building or reaching across the aisle would make them a rhino, which that's interesting to me, and I would disagree with that. But I'd agree with you, right, that it would have to depend on the policy that's being passed.
And a lot of the policies that I've seen from those Republicans, like Republican by name, those rhinos, tend to be more the policies anyway tend to be more along like the Democrat wish list, or I wouldn't say Democrat wish list. I would just say it's like the global elite wish list. Yeah, now we're getting back to taboo topic territory here. This is not between the liars anymore, Ryan.
Well, we did agree that you were hosting this one. Hopefully you put that in the description as like, disclaimer. This is Ken's host now. Just kidding.
With that said, though, like I said, if there was like a situation where like the majority of the Republicans were in power, but they were Republican by name, and they're voting, the policies they're voting for were America last, you know, amnesty at the border, spending like there's no one's business. I would just, yeah, I would just vote Democrat probably just to spite them at that point.
Polls
But again,
are closed in 25 states.
but then again, like I said, you have the primaries still during those seasons. So I would definitely vote
Sure.
for the challenger at that point to ensure that the incumbent that I took issue with, which, granted, not every candidate is going to vote 100% down the line. I'm not that guy that's going to say, oh, you voted one way. No. Now, with that said, there are some issues for me personally that are non-negotiable. And for
Sure.
me, one of those issues is abortion. And so if you support any pro-choice legislation that loosens the restrictions of abortion, then I'm going to go vote against you at that point. Or if both candidates are on the same lines, right, Rhino and a Democrat, then I'm just not going to vote for you at all.
Would you not vote, or would you vote independent at that point?
It would just depend, like, who would be on the other ballot at that point. If there's like a third party choice, and like I said, if they are pro-life and they support like at least restricting abortion, then I would vote for that candidate at that point. But that's one of those issues to me anyway. That's a primary issue. Do you have any primary issues?
Not really. I tend to just, I think it depends on the race, I suppose. I will, and I think it also stacks up against their opponents too on who's doing what. But no, not particularly.
Now, I know you said your governor in Kentucky has had mixed reviews from people. If you were able to vote this election cycle, would you have voted her out to get her out?
Andy Bashir?
Yeah, your governor.
Actually, I don't actually know if Andy was up. Truthfully, since I just got here in July and I wasn't going to be voting, I really didn't dig into the candidates. Andy Bashir keeps raising taxes. Taxes are not something I'm fond of, as anyone who's watched the show is well aware. However, I also did give credit and said that, my understanding from what I had kind of at least brushed up on was that Andy was adjusting in order to compensate for bad budget decisions that have been made. And I can understand, as someone who studies leadership, that sometimes leaders do have to make tough decisions, and they're making tough calls based off of the crap that the last person in charge left them. So like I can respect that. However, there is one thing that Andy Bashir did that, and again, assuming that this information was correct, was I was understanding that he basically campaigned on, hey, I'm going to improve education, and I'm going to handle the teachers' pensions and, fix all of this stuff. And, as someone whose, livelihood is dependent on education having funding, I'm like, that sounds great. And then he didn't. And so now I'm like, well, now I'm just, now I'm going to be mad about that. So I don't think I would have voted for Andy, although I didn't really look into his opponent. So I can't really stay there. But I can tell you the things that I did, the things that I can at least respect, or can't really say that I like raising taxes, but I understand why he did it. Just trying to balance the budget. So that's about the extent of what I knew about the races here when I moved there.
I see. Well, quickly, we're going to take off just a second here, but quickly, Ryan, go ahead and give your final predictions for tonight. What do you think we're going to see?
Okay, final prediction. Kevin did point out that Stacey Abrams' messaging is targeted. Here's my thoughts on that. I think that it's targeted towards the people and is going to resonate with people who are already going to vote for her. I don't think it's particularly popular from what I've seen with the more moderate people, and those tend to determine elections. So I don't think Stacey Abrams is going to win, but it'll be interesting to see that. With the Senate, I think that Raphael Warnock was predicted to be a lot more of a radical going in than he wound up being, at least in the time he had the vote. So I don't think that's going to hurt him. So I would not be surprised to see him hold on to his seat as the incumbent. I would predict that Oz is going to beat out Fetterman. I don't think Fetterman, regardless of what you thought of the stances of both sides in that debate, I don't think that Fetterman had a strong presence and had good answers that would satisfy people who are on the fence. I think there will be people, and a lot of people, who will vote against Oz because he's A, running on the Republican ticket, and or B, because he's Oz, right? Like, he's not like, oh my God, this is a great person who knows all about politics. I think that a lot of people will vote for him just to keep Fetterman out of the Senate. So I think there are more people who will vote against Fetterman than who will vote for him. So that's my prediction, is Senate for Pennsylvania is going to go to Oz. Warnock will take Georgia. The other ones I'm not too familiar with. I don't think Gretchen Whitmer's terribly popular. I think that COVID really hurt her perspective with the blue collar workers there and with people in general, the way that she handled stuff. And I think that she was one of the people who was caught in the scandal of her husband going out and about while she locked other people down. People aren't going to forget that, who are like, if it really upset them, they won't forget that this election cycle. So I think that'll be a question of how many people, it was kind of a not an issue for them. But I would not be surprised if I don't know anything about Dixon. I just know that Whitmer was not particularly popular. And I think that's all the ones that I was checking here. So those are mine. I don't think I missed any of the other big ones. Those are like the headline ones. So those are my predictions for that one.
Well, I was just going to ask, I just meant like as far as Congress tonight, we're going to see like a Republican House or Senate.
Oh, okay. And I went really specific. Okay, yeah. Sure. So I would say the House is going to flip for the GOP. Let's put them up. Let's say they'll be up by 20 seats.
Okay.
What were they down by? They were down by
like, I think maybe a dozen at most.
Yeah. So that would basically be plus 30 to 40 seats, right? And I think that there's enough up that would not, let's see here, 208. Yeah. So that would be my prediction.
Yeah. So
plus 20, locking it in now.
At least when it comes to the races here in Florida, since that's the only one I'm mainly interested in.
And to be clear, I mean that at the end of the day, they have 20 more seats in the House than the Democrats. I don't mean that they go from being negative 12 to just gaining 20 seats. I mean that they will gain the 12, like they will catch up and then be up 20 by the end.
I see.
Just to be clear.
I see. So for me, as far as I'm going to stick to the races I'm more familiar with, like Florida. I think Florida, we're going to see a darker shade of red. I think DeSantis maintains his powered governorship.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that one. Florida. Yeah. No question. He's going to maintain. In my mind, no question.
Yeah. As far as maybe the Georgia races, because I have family there and, my significant other, my girlfriend's there. I would say, at least for the governorship, I will say Kemp wins that election.
Okay.
Senate race in Georgia. My gut feeling says Warnock, to be honest. That's my gut feeling. Just because there's been too many negative press on Herschel Walker at this point that I think he can't recover. But at the same time, I may be underestimating the unpopularity of the Democrats the last 2 years, given that everything we've seen, whether it's from foreign policy, domestic policy, like security, and just economic issues. I may be underestimating the popularity of the Democrats, but maybe just the fact that he has a D next to the name is enough for the Georgia voters to say, nope, I don't care about the flaws of Herschel Walker. Kind of what you were saying about Fetterman and Oz is giving more of a scenario of voting against Warnock than voting for Herschel Walker. And then as far as Oz and Fetterman, my gut says Oz, just for the simple fact that, I don't know, I feel like the people in Pennsylvania they can see the fact the guy is like a Joe Biden. He barely can complete a sentence anyway. So,
and what's interesting about Pennsylvania, as blue as it's been, that's more just the cities. Like you've got Philadelphia, that's obviously.
and when it
very
comes to
blue.
state politics, they tend to vote red anyway.
Yeah, and they've got a lot of oil and energy stuff going on in that state, and people who take a hard stance against that are not going to be popular in today's day and age, I don't think. So,
no, especially given the gas prices right now, especially. So I think as far as the House and the Senate and the general level, I will say that we're going to see a flip in the House. I'm going to go ahead and go high.
okay.
We're going to see a red wave. It's not going to be a red trunklet. Because I did say I do believe I'm leaning more towards red wave than a red droplet, but I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a red droplet. So whatever you said, I think you said plus 20 seats,
plus
right?
20 in the House. Yep.
I'll double it, plus 40. So
okay, swinging for the fences.
Yes, I am. Plus 40 Senate. Probably Democrats, but
really,
yeah, just because of the fact of the again. But I may be underestimating right now. I'm lowballing as far as because again the whole election integrity aspect, and also the factor of I maybe underestimate the unpopularity of the Democrats too, because I live in Florida, but Florida's become red, so I do have a bias versus a swing, like a true swing state at this point, like Pennsylvania maybe, or Wisconsin, those states.
Wisconsin's pretty, yeah. Wisconsin was a blue Senate, wasn't it?
I think so, and I think isn't the governor's gubernatorial race? Don't they have a gubernatorial race this year too?
They do, and I don't remember what the incumbent is.
I know the incumbent is Democrat, but
okay.
With that said, my final prediction, I got to go to Arizona because the situation of Arizona. I honestly think Kari Lake has a good shot at pulling off the upset, to be honest.
Yeah,
with that said,
she's the Republican candidate, right?
Yeah. Now, with that said, it all depends about the election integrity aspect.
Yep.
And that's the main thing. And that's why I have like skepticism. If it was a perfect world, like we didn't have election integrity issues, or at least smaller or more minimal issues when it comes to election procedures, I would say we're going to see a red tsunami tonight, but or maybe a red flood, but I'm just being realistic. So that's just me. Anyways, you have any final thoughts, Ryan?
No, that's it. If you, I mean, at this point we're airing pretty late, but if you haven't voted, you can vote. Go vote. Don't pull a Ryan. I was unable to vote this year, or at least in this particular cycle. So make sure you do. And yeah, I'm interested to see how all this shakes out. I don't know. I'm just a person who hates high levels of uncertainty. So I'm going to be honest. Even when it comes to things like this, where like I might be like, ugh, that's not the outcome I wanted. I'm just happy when it's over, because then at least I'm dealing with the level of certainty, and that's just kind of the way that I am with things. So
fair enough. Well, if you have gone out to vote, please go out and vote. Remember, check your wallet, look at the receipts. All right, look at the receipts. See how high those grocery bills have become. So that's what I did when I went out to vote. I early voted, so I made sure my voice was known and did not do a Ryan, but I'm just teasing you, Ryan. I love you. Anyways.
I know. Despite my flaws, like not voting.
Yeah, what a terrible flaw. Anyways, with that said, folks, make sure to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell if you haven't done so already. Most of us don't hit the notification bell, but please, for our self-esteem, hit the notification bell. You can follow my show at Taboo Topic on YouTube and on Rumble, actually, as well. You can find my show on Rumble. Additionally, if you want to follow my social media, go and follow me at Kendra_Express on Instagram, Truth Social, Getter, and Twitter. I do have a Twitter if you want to follow me there. I don't really post anything there. Whereas Ryan, all you got to do is just type in Between the Liars and you'll find them anywhere, right. Including the YouTube channel, which the YouTube channel for this is Taboo Topic. So with that said, folks, hope you have a great, wonderful evening. try not to sweat too much about the election results. It'll come out. It's going to happen anyway, no matter what the hype is. And with that said, folks, y'all have a blessed evening. Thanks for tuning in.